The Virginia Cable Telecommunications Association and your local cable provider presents Cable Reports. Join us now as Cable Reports brings you up to date on current issues facing the Commonwealth through discussions with your local legislators and other policymakers from across Virginia.
Welcome to a special edition of Cable Reports. I'm Woody Evans for the Virginia Cable Telecommunications Association. We are very pleased to have the 71st Governor of the state of Virginia with us today, Bob McDonnell. Welcome, sir.
Oh, thanks, Woody. I appreciate you hosting this. It's good to be able to talk directly to our citizens.
Great. Well, I think one legislator, I think it was Chris Jones, when he was finally debating the budget and the transportation practice, pointed out how now rhetoric was meeting reality. And I think that's a good way to jump into transportation. The rubber met the road. Congratulations, by the way, on your transportation funding initiative. Talk to us about how that began and some of the things you had to go through to get that package through.
Well, Woody, as we got ready to enter our final year in office, I said, what are the things that we need to do to lay the foundations for opportunity in Virginia's future, to be able to provide more ability to create jobs and improve the quality of life? And there are a couple of things, three things that I came to mind that I told the General Assembly we needed to do. One was to get a structurally balanced budget to deal with the tough fiscal times that could be ahead with sequestration. Secondly, is improve our K-12 system with more choice, more accountability, and more tools. And then thirdly is fix transportation. And then we looked at the rankings that showed Northern Virginia the most congested area of the country. Hampton Roads 20th, Richmond 60th. We got dropped down in our business rankings by CNBC from first to third, almost solely because of transportation infrastructure. So I said, you know what, we're going to take it on. It's not going to be easy. It hadn't been done in 27 years, but it needs to be done. And so I proposed a bill that was creative, that had some tax reform, that had general fund, that had a couple other things in it, and told the General Assembly, do not leave here until you get transportation solved. Tired of the excuses and the delay. We're not Washington. We're Richmond. We fix things. And so, as you said, that's where we're all about getting results, not just about talking about things. And so the General Assembly took us seriously and ended up passing a fairly significant package of legislation that will cut the gas tax by a third. And that's the starting point that some people need to know, is that the gas prices ought to go down 6-7 cents a gallon when this is implemented. We used a substantial amount of general fund money for the first time, saying transportation is a core function of government. So this is existing revenues, not new money. Existing general fund, $200 million. Future general fund, $200 million to put into transportation. And then here's the biggest problem we try to solve, is the gas tax revenues are continuing to go down. Everybody knows it. It's worth 45 cents on the dollar right now of what it was in 1986, the last time there were transportation changes. Asphalt's gone up 300%. So there's a math problem, and it's not a political problem. We have less money coming in, and we have far more demands. And I said, we can't let our road structure continue to crumble, continue to be unsafe, have people sitting in traffic. The surveys said that Northern Virginia, for instance, the average citizen up there wastes 67 gallons of gas idling in traffic, and a total quality of life cost of $1,400. So that's a hidden tax. So I told the people, we're going to do something about it. And that's what the bill does. It fixes the structural problems with the gas tax by relying now more on a small increase in the sales tax, and it provides some additional help for Northern Virginia and Hampton Roads, which are two of the worst areas in the country. So I've still got 30 days to review the bill. No doubt there'll be some amendments, but in terms of something that will help improve the quality of life and create hundreds of thousands of jobs for Virginians over the next decade or so, I'm glad we got it done.
And of course, you've been nibbling around the edges ever since you were elected governor. There were a number of other things you have done over the past 3 years, including accelerating bonding that put money into new construction. Talk to us a little bit about those efforts, including the public-private partnerships that are going on.
And that's a very important point. We did not get to this point overnight. When I came in office, I said, I'm going to address transportation. So I've tried everything that I can with every tool the General Assembly has given me to help fix this problem. First year I audited VDOT 4 times and said, we're going to make this place run better. And we found $1.4 billion not being appropriately used. Got that out on the street. We dedicated 2/3 of the surplus revenues to transportation. We use public-private partnerships to the maximum degree possible to leverage scarce dollars to get private sector dollars on major things like the 95 hot lanes, like the bridge tunnel project in Portsmouth, Route 460. Major projects, but those require the paying of user fee, tolls, in order to get that done. We've created an infrastructure bank. As you pointed out, we created new bonds and accelerated old bonds to take advantage of low interest rates and competitive bids. And so we've got $3.5 billion in projects out on the street. Will be out on the street over the next couple of years. But those are all essentially short-term fixes. I looked at that, and we estimated there's still a $500 million a year maintenance crossover problem, meaning that $500 million is taken out of construction to put in maintenance just to fix potholes and paving today. Does nothing to be able to fix roads in the future. So I said, you know what? We got to do more. I'm not going to let this problem fester. I'm not going to pass it on to another governor. And legislature, you need to get it done with working with me this session, and they did.
And of course, it's going to be a boon to our ports. I understand that there's a lot of construction going on at the Panama Canal that will allow these huge tanker ships now through there and then onto the Port of Virginia. Talk to us about how important that is to the Commonwealth's economy.
That's a great point. That's for listeners all over the state and viewers around the state that don't really know the value of that port. It's a statewide asset now. Obviously, it happens to be in Hampton Roads on the ocean, but in 2014, next year, the Panama Canal is supposed to be widened. And that creates marvelous opportunities for all the shipping lanes to be shifted, especially from Asia, instead of going to West Coast ports, to now use the Panama Canal to come to East Coast ports. Our Norfolk port is within 500 miles of 2/3 of the U.S. population. It's extraordinary. And so we are the only deep water port that's dredged to 50 feet. We don't have problems like Savannah and Charleston and New York with bridges or channel depths. So this could be a great opportunity for Virginia to get major new shipping traffic. And the port means more jobs, it means more tax revenues, all because of economic growth. But they can't survive without a good transportation network. Rail, road, that's one of the reasons Route 460 is being done, is because that's a major artery in and out of the port of Virginia. So it's a total package that expands our ability for road and rail and bridges and mass transit. All those modalities will gain. But the biggest gainer, Woody, the bottom line is the citizens. In some regions of the state, they're going to pay a little bit more. There's no way to say any different. I look back to the things that President Reagan did 30 years ago in 1983. He raised the gas tax from 4 cents to 9 cents. And he said, which is a 125% increase in the gas tax. And he said, it has not been raised in 23 years. I am not going to let the magnificent infrastructure of the United States of America crumble. It will cost more down the road to fix than if we fix it now. So the president advocated and then signed a 5-cent increase in the federal gas tax. And this bill is going to require certain citizens in certain areas that don't drive diesel cars to pay a little bit more. But long term, it is the way for us to create more jobs and more opportunity and solve congestion problems for people all over the state. And I'm glad the General Assembly got it passed.
Now, I think some people are still concerned about the fact that the diesel fuel tax is still maintained, but are there exemptions?
Yes. Yeah, we advocated that for people that don't drive diesel trucks but drive a diesel car. It's a very small percentage, but there's a mechanism in there to address that problem. Diesel, the reason the diesel tax was maintained and actually increased a little bit from to about 6 cents per gallon, or 6% of the total price, is because trucks are the ones that primarily use diesel. And of the diesel sold in Virginia, about 70% of it is from out-of-state trucks. Trucks are critically important to our economy, but they also cause 60, 70, 80% of the total wear and tear on the road simply because of their weight. And so the General Assembly and I felt that, look, you put the burden on the people that are responsible for the use of the roads and the maintenance of the roads. And some people felt that was a fair thing to do. But the diesel tax implications for automobile users will not change.
Now, hybrids will be assessed a $100 annual fee.
Yeah.
And I think the state of Virginia is converting its fleet to natural gas.
I am all in favor of alternative fuel vehicles. Of course, that's what's creating part of the problem for the gas tax. Right. It's inflation, it's alternative fuel vehicles, and it's a dramatic increase in miles per gallon. All of those mean the gas tax continues to go down, which is why I insisted you got to get rid of it, or, which is my original proposal, or cut it back, cut the reliance back on that, because we're going to continue to reduce those. The problem with the alternative fuels. Listen, as you pointed out, I'm all for it. I'm converting our entire state fleet to natural gas. It's cheaper. It's the equivalent of about $1 a gallon. It's cleaner, about 60% of the carbon footprint. Makes a lot of sense. So we're doing that with our state fleet. But the problem with hybrids, well, not hybrids, but alternative fuels generally, is if you don't buy gas, you don't pay gas tax. So you use the roads, but you don't contribute to actually the fund that builds and maintain roads. So this is something every state's grappling with. If you pay no state gas tax and no federal gas tax, then you're using the roads, but you're not really contributing to them. So we felt it was reasonable to have a $100 fee. The General Assembly imposed a $50 fee on electric vehicles last year. We're just bumping it up to $100, but having it apply to other types of cars. Listen, I know the hybrid owners aren't happy, but it's not to be punitive. We're for them doing that, for the alternative fuels. But you can't have people using the roads and not paying for them in some way. So they're not paying nearly as much as what a gas-powered car would pay, but it is something, and that's why the General Assembly kept that bill that in there.
Now, there were a few fits and starts during the process. How were you able to get Democrats and Republicans to come together to pass such a monumental bill?
Well, listen, originally it was a Republican initiative. You know, I introduced the bill. I looked the General Assembly in the eye during the session and said, don't leave here without getting this done. I introduced the bill. The Speaker of the House was the chief patron of the bill. And the first vote in the Senate, there were 50 Republicans and 4 Democrats. So starting out, this was clearly a Republican-led initiative. But like many things, to get solutions, Woody, there's some compromise that's involved. And I knew that at the end of the day, to get a bill passed in the House and the Senate, that it took Republicans and Democrats working together to get it done. Something that doesn't happen across the Potomac, where it's finger pointing and blame and fighting. And so on this initiative, we drove the train, saying you got to cut the gas tax, you got to rely on a significant amount of general funds, and any new revenues that you put in place have got to be limited, they've got to be reasonable, and they've got to essentially approximate the gas tax revenue that's being lost. And so that's what the final bill does. Now, there are new revenues that are going to be paid by people in Northern Virginia and Hampton Roads. They will pay more for roads. But when I look at the report that says they're paying $1,400 right now a year in a hidden tax because of the incredible congestion, the worst place in the country to drive, Northern Virginia, they're going to, in the long run, probably be paying less under this bill than they'd be paying if we didn't fix the roads. And so you either address the problem now with a reasonable approach, or you pay dramatically more later when jobs don't come, jobs leave, people can't get to their son's soccer game or their daughter's piano recital on time. It's a real source of frustration. So it's about quality of life, and so we made some tough decisions. I'd prefer there be no revenue increases in there, but to be able to get a compromise that passed that actually does something for future generations of Virginians. This is an approach that involved compromise in both houses that I support. Now, we're going to have to probably make some changes as we review the bill from a legal and a policy standpoint, but this will be something that Virginians will be helped with for, I think, a long time to come.
I assume you're getting kudos from the business community, number one, and I assume this will allow the state to maintain its AAA bond rating as well in the long run.
I'm getting kudos and condemnation. It's the way that's what you do as governor. My job is to get stuff done, not to just talk about it. And we have talked about our approach being results-oriented conservatism. So a lot of people, some of my friends aren't happy. I respect that. They have a different opinion. Some of the business community, most of the business community, pretty happy. I'll tell you, I've never seen a coalition like this. We had people from business community. We had the Teamsters Union, local governments, technology community, realtors, a broad cross-section of Virginians that said, this is the time, this is the moment, let's get this done, and let's improve the quality of life for Virginians for generations to be able to come. And yes, will it help us maintain our AAA bond rating? Absolutely. Will it help me go out and tell the Virginia story around the world and say, come to Virginia, we've got great schools, we've got low tax and low regulatory climate, and we've got a world-class transportation system to help you move goods to market? Absolutely.
You talked about across the Potomac, and of course, come Friday, something pretty bad is about to happen.
Yeah.
The sequestration issue that you mentioned earlier. I know you were at meetings with the president. Yes. You were at meetings with the other Republican governors recently. Give us the lay of the land.
Sequestration was supposed to be a hammer, not a policy. A year and a half ago, and I understand it was the president's idea. Republicans and Democrats voted for it in August of 2011, and it was supposed to be a poison pill so bad that the super committee would get the job done and avert it. Well, the super committee failed. The Congress has failed. The president has failed to lead. And here we are 18 months later, and we're a couple days away from this policy going into effect. What I would state clearly is the country's broke. I mean, we're in deep trouble, Woody. We're almost $17 trillion in debt. It is immoral to pass on this kind of debt to future generations of Americans. And so until the Congress and the President get serious about cutting spending and reining in entitlements and finding a creative way to make government work better, we're never going to get out of this. And I hear the President just talking about tax increases, and that's not the way to go. What I object to with sequestration is 50% of the cuts are on the U.S. military.
That much, and of course that affects the Commonwealth greatly.
Oh, in a disproportionate way. But most importantly, it affects our national security. Secretary Panetta, Secretary of Defense under Obama, says these cuts will be devastating to the military. We already cut $487 billion, and now another $600 billion in cuts over the next 10 years. It's $1 trillion of defense cuts. Well, we got kids from Virginia and Afghanistan. Just the wrong thing to do. So I'm 100% for cuts. There need to be more than sequestration. Sequestration is not even 1 year of the deficit, to put it in perspective. So we need to be much more frugal. As long as entitlements are off the table, we're never going to get it done. The President's got to get off that and come to the table. My concern, though, as the governor of Virginia, is the estimates mean that this is a loss of 200,000 jobs.
That many.
Over 10 years. That's what several studies have shown, up to from 130 to 200,000. It means a reduction of about $4.6 billion in state domestic product, which is about 0.6% of our total state economy. And we're starting to see the effects a little bit, even the last couple months, as defense contractors have pared back because contracts have been canceled. Just to give you an idea, we've got the Pentagon, we've got 19 military bases, we've got 25,000 defense contractors, primarily Hampton Roads in Northern Virginia. You start reining in defense spending, and by the way, defense spending needs to be reined in, like everything.
Sure.
Don't put half of the cuts on our kids in uniform when we're fighting a war. Just the wrong policy. Balance it differently, but do more and bring in entitlements. That's the problem, is it's not a comprehensive approach, and there's precious little being done to actually reform the federal government, like we've done here with the state government in Richmond.
Now, I know you took some steps in anticipation of this happening.
Yeah.
I know the rainy day fund has been replenished, if
Yes.
not doubled
Yes.
recently. You have the federal contingency fund.
Yes.
Those things will help, but if this occurs, it's going to have a major impact.
It
on
won't be
Virginia.
pretty. There's no way to sugarcoat that. We anticipated a year and a half ago, once sequestration was put into law, that it might happen. So I immediately issued an executive order to get a group together of experts from the military and local government and legislators to find out what can we do to prepare for this. How can we start doing some things to transition portions of our economy from being reliant on defense spending to maybe some civilian applications, especially things like modeling and simulation, cybersecurity that have civilian applications. We also created a new FACT fund, Federal Action Contingency Trust Fund, to put money away for the potential cuts in defense so we can react. We've dramatically increased, as you pointed out, the rainy day fund. It's gone from less than $300 million now to over $750 million, $760 million or so in the rainy day fund. So we're in far better shape to deal with any downturns in the economy. And we've done a couple other things. We've worked with local governments. We gave them back about $45 million this year in total money so that they could deal with different needs that they've got at the local level. But even with that, when the sequestration happens, you'll see furloughs of DOD civilian employees. You'll see more cutbacks in contracts for Virginia corporations. And we'll begin to see some changes in the tax revenue coming into the state. So I think we're as prepared as we can be. We started thinking about this a year and a half ago. We've always hoped that somehow the President and Congress would get their act together, but at this point, I think it's going to happen, and we're going to have to deal with it, and they'll have to see, Congress will wait and see who screams the loudest, and ultimately, until they get the fiscal house of this country in order, nothing's going to change. The U.S. Senate has not passed a budget for 4 years. It's outrageous. It's gross mismanagement of the nation's finances. We pass a budget that's balanced every year in Virginia, Woody, and that's how we're able to maintain our AAA bond rating and be able to maintain the confidence of the people. They can't pass a budget in Washington.
Well, let's talk about another bright spot here in the General Assembly, and that was your education initiative, K through 12. You've got teacher raises.
Yes.
You've got a number of other initiatives. Talk to us about those.
I'm very pleased with what the General Assembly did. They passed virtually every bill that I sent to them this year. We started with this premise that every kid deserves a great teacher and a great school because that makes great citizens. And it doesn't matter what your socioeconomic background is or your zip code, that's what we need to get for you. And we started with the premise that we need more accountability, more transparency, more choice, and more tools in the school system. And so we put in a broad number of bills and budget amendments. So we've got the first teacher pay raise in 5 years. We've got to pay our teachers better so we get more of our best and brightest young people to leave college and go into teaching. But we've also got more accountability. We passed a 10-year reform bill to make it a longer probationary period before you get a continuing contract. And if you're not a good performing teacher and you're at the bottom of the rung and not teaching well, we've made it easier to have you removed. That's a good thing. We want the best teachers in the classroom. Secondly, more accountability. We're going to grade schools just like we grade Johnny in school,
A through F.
Everybody understands that. You know what? Parents that have D and F schools, they're going to be raising heck in those communities. That's what we want. Right now, we've got a convoluted grading system nobody understands. Thirdly, we've created a new opportunity school district. I said that the time of tolerating failing schools is over. And so of the 6 or so that are there now, after 2 years and they don't turn it around, we will either have a charter school or we'll have the state create this opportunity school district, and we will have a management structure from the state that'll turn those schools around. We've had a paperwork reduction act. We've had school choice now with tuition scholarships to be able to give effective choice for young people. We've basically ended social promotion in 3rd grade. If you can't read, absolutely critical. We're not going to pass you on to the 4th grade if you can't read, and we put about $8 million into remediation so that we don't continue a cycle of illiteracy. And we've done a number of other things to dramatically reform our K-12 system that'll make it much better, because we're not just competing against Maryland and North Carolina. We're competing against Taiwan and Beijing and Shanghai and London and Delhi and Mumbai and all these other places that are really competing with us hard in the global economy, and I've got to raise the bar of excellence for all of our young people. So I'm very excited about that, and this will do a lot of good for our kids going forward.
And of course, Teach for America will now be in the Commonwealth.
That's one I didn't mention, but the Teach for America program, wildly successful around the country to get world-class teachers, some of the best kids to come into the low-performing, underperforming schools, or the hard-to-staff schools. We got about 300 great kids from Virginia that are in that program. They can't teach in Virginia because of our licensure laws. They're having to go to other states. Now, with the change in the law that I advocated, they'll be able to come to Virginia. So the whole idea is you got to have great teachers. We sent our staff to Finland that's been ranked as the best international schools. They recruit the best and the brightest, the top 10% from colleges. They pay them like doctors and lawyers, stick them in the classroom. They got great schools. We're not going to be able to do all that, but we understand that excellence, you got to pay for excellence, and we've taken the first step towards doing that.
And of course, your STEM, science, technology, engineering, math, and health are still going forward.
That's critical, because what we got to do, you got to educate not just for education's sake. You got to educate for the great jobs of the future in Virginia. That means science, technology, engineering, math, healthcare, business. I mean, these are the things that will translate directly to great jobs in the future. You know, we got the second highest number of technology workers behind California. It's been a boom for Virginia with these high-tech jobs. But you got to get, I say, we got to make it cool to be a geek again, Woody. I don't know if you were a geek like me in third grade, but you got to get these young people interested. So we've been given some performance bonuses to STEM teachers in the elementary school, so we get more great teachers coming in and teaching these young people in elementary school, so they want to go into these disciplines later on to create great jobs in the future.
We got about 2 minutes left, but I want to make sure there's two subjects that you have an opportunity to comment on. First of all, your initiative to make automatic the restoration of civil rights.
Mm-hmm. So I ran on a platform of having the fairest and fastest restoration of rights system in history. And we've done that. We've restored more rights than any governor in history, and we're doing it in 30 to 60 days as opposed to a year or more is what other governors have done. So I think we've done that. What I want to do is take the arbitrariness out of it. Instead of one governor deciding this person gets it back and this person doesn't, although we've got clear rules in my office, so let the General Assembly do it. Set the rules like 48 other states do for automatic restoration after you've met certain criteria. Unfortunately, the General Assembly didn't approve that, but we're going to continue to make the process better in our office.
And then Medicaid expansion, which is a huge issue for the Commonwealth. I understand that over the last 30 years, costs have gone up some 1,600%.
That's right.
And one of your major concerns beyond the cost relates to the need to reform Medicaid.
Absolutely. We need to take care of people that are poor, that need access to health care, but I am not going to break the Bank of Virginia to do it. And so I've been adamantly opposed to Medicaid reform, Medicaid expansion, unless there is dramatic reform. We're just beginning that process. So I would say there's not going to be any Medicaid expansion in Virginia while I'm governor, unless there's long-term, sustainable, real reforms that show that we can bend that cost curve. When it goes up 1,600%, from 5% to 21% of the total budget, you know you've got a budget project. And that's before Obamacare. And I've made very clear my opposition to Obamacare. I think it's bad policy, but it is the law. And what we've done in the budget is set up essentially a firewall against expansion unless a significant amount of reform is done. We're just starting that. But it's got to be proven that we're going to help to bend the cost curve for Virginia's budget. We're not going to contribute to the national debt. We're going to have systematic reform in the private sector in Virginia, and we're going to get maximum amount of flexibility and waivers from the federal government. I don't know if that's going to take a year or 10 years or never, but we are not expanding Medicaid in Virginia as long as I'm governor unless we have these demonstrable reforms. And I think doing otherwise would be irresponsible because it'll burden the future governors of Virginia with unsustainable spending.
30 seconds left. What advice do you have for whoever will become the next governor of the Commonwealth of Virginia?
Yeah, I'd say it's an immense privilege to have the job held by Thomas Jefferson and Patrick Henry. Enjoy it every day. Don't get bogged down in some of the little battles. Every decision you make, somebody's going to like it, somebody won't. But come in every day deciding you're going to work hard, you're going to dream big, you're going to try to leave the campground a little better than you found it, like I did, and you'll have a great time and you'll serve the people well.
Thank you for being here.
Okay,
Governor
Woody.
Bob McDonnell.
Thanks.
Thank you for watching this special edition of Cable Reports, brought to you by the Virginia Cable Telecommunications Association. Until next time, I'm Woody Evans.
Time to actually give answers.